What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 62 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm excited, as always, to get into these episode discussions with you guys. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 62 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought this was another good episode. I think the last couple of episodes have been pretty good. I think 58 was really good, still probably my favorite episode besides episode 60, which I thought was a really good episode as well. And I thought the last episode was good in its own rights, not as high as the other two, but I did like it for the most part, and this one is no exception. I really thought this was a good episode, and a very controversial episode, if I'm going to be completely honest, from what I've seen, and that's what we'll be talking about in this video a little later on. So let's start off at the beginning of the episode, where we have a meeting with the former Goha presidents and the only other Goha presidents to go up against Yugioh, and that is Euron. So we have all of them in basically the little picnic table area of the Goha Elementary School. We see Yugioh there, we see Eugene, which actually makes his return into the show, which it's been a minute since we've actually really seen him do anything. I think the last scene that we really got with him was with no dialogue, by the way, is when we saw him fishing with Meguro in one of the last episodes, which was just a brief scene. We didn't really see any dialogue between the two. We just see them catching a fish, and that's really it. So it's really cool to actually see Eugene back in the show. And let me start off by saying this too. If the Goha siblings do stay around, which I do think there's a very good chance that they will stick around, I do hope, out of all of the Goha presidents, I do hope we see a little bit more of Eugene. And I know that's going to be a weird character to discuss. I know some people would say maybe Yuka, Euron, and Yugioh, and maybe even Yugioh as well. The reason why I say Eugene specifically is because I think the other presidents have had their own focus, and I feel like Eugene has just been a little bit lackluster, in my opinion, and it makes sense because he hasn't really done much in the show. I feel like Yuka has done more than Eugene. I definitely think Euron and Yugioh have, and even Yugioh too has done way more than what Eugene has done in the show. So I do want to see a little bit more of him going forward and have him get his own type of development. I mean, I thought he had some great growth in the episode where he dueled against Luke, kind of learning his story about how he obtained the deck that he used against Luke, but other than that, there's not much that we have with Eugene. So I really do hope going forward we do see a little bit of him going forward, because I think he could be a pretty interesting character if he does get the spotlight that he deserves. So I do hope we see Eugene going further and actually do a little bit more. And obviously you have Yuka and Euron at the meeting as well. And essentially what this meeting is that they need to try to find a way to stop Yugioh in his plans of becoming the last remaining president. And this is where Euron makes the proposal: why don't we team up with Yuga's team? After all, they're also involved with this whole conflict as well. Since rush duels are on the line, maybe it would be in our best interest to team up with Yuga's team. But that is immediately stopped, as Yugioh does state, you know, this is our business and that we should deal with it, and we shouldn't drag Yuga into this. And although I respect Yugioh, I honestly do agree with Euron, because you both do have similar goals. You both want to stop Yugioh. I mean, you guys have different reasons of why you want to do it. I mean, you guys want to stop him from doing it because you just don't think it's right, and this is your sibling, and you want to do what's best for not only him, but just for all six of them in general. And Yuga's getting involved because they put Rush Duels on the line. Of course he's going to be involved with this as being the creator of Rush Duels. So although your goals are different, your motives are still the same. You still want to stop Yugioh with his plans, and I don't think Yuga would have a problem at all of stopping Yugioh for whatever reasons that the Goha siblings have. So although I think it makes the most sense to do it, I respect Yugioh and the fact that he believes that they should be the ones to do it and not involve Yuga. That's where I will say I definitely have respect for Yugioh, even though it is the smarter idea to go and team up with someone that's also involved with this. I completely understand Yugioh's case. And we also do see as well, while this meeting is going on, Yugioh is watching the entire thing going on. I mean, he literally is like basically, I wouldn't say recording them, but he's watching them from like a camera at some point, which we'll mention a little bit later on and how he's able to watch this, but he's essentially knowing what's going on. And we do see his desk with all of the other like badges that they had when they were Go-Op presidents, and we see 4 of them, which that will be a little bit important going forward, and there's a reason why I'm mentioning 4. But let's go into the stuff with Yuga and the crew. So they end up going and meeting up with Tiger because Tiger informs the group that Luke has been missing. They can't find Luke anywhere. He just seemed to disappear out of nowhere, and they just can't find him. And this worries the group a little bit because, you know, obviously their best friend has just disappeared out of nowhere, and obviously Tiger is a little bit nervous about this as well because it's her own brother, and you can even see she's a little ticked off with him right now because he ended up disappearing out of nowhere. But that's just because she does care about Luke a lot. In fact, she sends multiple choppers to go and find Luke. And it's not just like 1 or 2 choppers to go and find Luke. I'm pretty sure there was like in the double digits of just choppers going and looking for Luke. And that also shows how rich these kids are. I mean, I'm sorry, but they are stacked. They are rich. I mean, we probably were already hinted at this because we saw a mansion in both of Tiger's flashbacks and a picture of Luke, and I think it was his father, if I remember correctly. We see a big old mansion behind him, so we kind of knew they were already rich, but I guess they wanted to show us that a little bit more with all the choppers. And this is where Yuga decides to try and use his newest invention, which I guess can detect a person based off of what they ate. Don't ask me. There's a robot on the moon. Yugioh Sevens just does stuff really weird. Like, I remember watching this episode and I see this is the case of what's going on. I'm like, what kind of technology is this? I mean, if there was a technology in the real life world where you can basically track someone based off of the last thing they ate, that would be honestly pretty concerning. And that just breaks all, like, I don't know, like that was just one of the weirdest things I think Sevens has done. And he ends up finding out that they ended up eating curry, and he uses the new road that he ended up creating and accidentally shocks Tiger because she ended up also eating curry since they ate the same meal. And I swear, maybe it's just because she's too worried about her brother, or I don't know what the case is, but as soon as that happened, I was very confident that Yugioh was essentially Yugioh was going to be dead. I thought that was what was going to happen, but, you know, she's a little bit worried about her brother too much that she doesn't care about it right now. And plus, I do think she has some respect to Yugioh, but I could have swore that after that scene would have happened, I thought Yugioh was dead right there and then. Like, Yugioh, you better start running. And like that's literally what it is. Like, I paused it. I started laughing. I was like, Yugioh, you better start running because you are dead if she catches you. But that doesn't seem to end up being the case. But this is where we also learn that Rook did not eat the same curry, as he ended up putting his own spices to create his own curry, similar to how Roman made that curry from him in episode 13, you know, the Dragius curry. And essentially that's what he does, but instead of creating the same thing and creating the Dragiers curry, he creates a Bunker Strike curry, which if you don't remember that monster, I don't blame you. I think that was the monster he used against Schrodinger, I think was the character he used that monster against. I could be completely wrong. It's the yellow looking dragon that he has. I mean, he has a lot of dragons. I think of like Shockley Dragon, his Dragiers, Metagears, and Miragios. So he has a whole bunch of dragons, and that's one of the more forgettable ones in my opinion. That one was just an okay dragon. So the fact that he made curry out of that, I just kind of found that kind of hilarious. But apparently also, by the way, the scanner could detect that kind of curry, which is weird. I don't know how in the world this technology works in Sevens, but again, it's Sevens. We have a robot on the moon. Anything is possible. So, they are able to locate Luke because of the scanner, and they end up going to the forest, which we do know he ran into the forest because we even saw it in the last episode. So they're walking through the forest, and there was an interesting line that happened while they're walking through the forest, as Roman mentions, you know what's really weird? You know, they're known as the Yugioh 6 presidents, however, there's only 5 presidents, which I find fascinating because this is the first time I think that any of the characters in the Sevens universe has even mentioned it. I mean, we as fans know that there's 5 current presidents, but we also know that there's a 6th president somewhere, which we know that there's going to be another Yugioh sibling. I mean, we see it in the opening, but these characters don't know about it. All they can go off of this is that they're called the Yugioh 6 siblings, but there's only 5. So I like the fact that they actually are acknowledging that, but they don't really worry about it that much since right now they're more focused on finding Luke more than anything. So they continue through the forest. They end up getting into this weird arena looking area, and then this is where we see like Neil in his hologram form. He's announcing that a duel is going to be taking place, and then this is where we see Yugioh coming out of the 6-cross ship. You know, he's kind of complaining a little bit because Euron was supposed to be the one to come down here and duel, but since Euron was gone, because obviously he was in that meeting, he couldn't actually come to participate in this duel, so Yugioh had to take his spot in this episode, and he's ready to go and challenge one of the members of Yugioh's group, whether that was Yugioh, Roman, Gagato, or Tiger, or even Swirly for that matter as well. But then we just hear out of the woods, like, not so fast, I'm gonna be your opponent, and then we see Luke walking out of the forest, so we know that he's all well and fine, but out of nowhere, for some reason, he's wearing a mask, I guess, and then he's like a dragon mask of some sorts, and he's also wearing like this weird scarf looking thing, and he says that he's gonna be Yugioh's next opponent, and he doesn't call himself Luke anymore because apparently he's now the Luke Man, which I will say this though, this was pretty interesting when I saw it for the first time, just when he came out, because I actually watched the episodes unsubbed, and when he came out of the forest, I was like, what are you doing, Rook? Like, seriously, what in the world are you doing? Which, this, to me, kind of feels like in a similar situation of what Gagato had with his Gakuting form and what Roman had with her awakened state. So, I guess it was now Luke's turn to kind of get something like that. But I will say this, though. Out of all the 3, from the Luke Man to Gakuting to Awaken Roman, this one by far was probably the better one. Now, I will say this, though. I think the only thing that I didn't like with Luke was that he was really repetitive of repeating the same thing, which I know that's been Luke's thing the entire time when he does his summoning chants, but it kind of got a little bit annoying because he kept doing that throughout the duel, but honestly, it wasn't really that big of a deal. But honestly, I didn't mind this. I think this was way better than Gakuting, and it was way better than Awaken Roman, in my opinion. But he goes and is ready to go up against Yugioh. Yugioh accepts, and then this is where we get into the duel between Yugioh and the Luke Man. I should be more specific on this. And general thoughts on the duel. Boy, oh boy, was this a fascinating duel. And, you know, you have Yugioh basically toying with, I guess the Luke Man, I gotta call him in this episode, that, you know, I know your playing style, I know what your deck is all about, and we see him going through his plays. He gets out his, Goddess of Reversal. I can't remember the name of the sub one, it's just like a long name, and I have not called it by its original name in a very long time, so I do apologize for not calling it by its original name, but he's able to get the advanced version of Goddess of Reversal on the field on his first turn, sets 2 cards and pass. The Luke Man goes into his turn, and we almost see him playing completely different cards actually in this duel, as he uses the star cards, I guess what it's called, because he played cards like the Dragon, the Wyvern, the Star Dragon, I believe was like the ace that he played in this episode. So we saw cards like that, which was pretty interesting. He uses that monster to get over The advance got us a reversal, deal Yugioh some damage in, and this is where we see how much of a threat that Yugioh can be, as he is able to pull off another fusion summon, which we knew he was gonna use fusion in this episode. Any time that Yugioh is gonna be dueling in this arc, or just in general when he duels, he's gonna be using fusion. After all, he was the one that used fusion first, and that's what he ends up doing. He ends up fusion summoning in this duel, but instead of fusing a Sora Star, which he used against Yuga, he uses, which was essentially his anti-dragon fusion card, which was Vertical Star, if I remember correctly. That was the fusion he summoned. What? Yeah, it was Vertical Star. I was thinking of Erical Star, but Erical Star, I believe, is the one that's towards, like, spellcasters, not dragons. Again, I do apologize if I'm bad when I kind of discuss these rush duels. I'm not really much invested into the rush duel games, so when it comes to these cards, I'm gonna be really bad with them, so I do apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was Vertistar that was the one he summoned in this duel, and he uses the effect to be able to destroy the Star Dragon, and goes for a direct attack, and actually goes for game, so he was essentially gonna OTK the Luke Man. However, he ends up using a trap card, which is able to predict some of the damage, and he was able to go down from 4,000 to 100 life points, which is like typical for, I just seem like the good characters, or just any character in general. I'll say it just always seems like they just love to be down like the 100 life point range, or at sometimes like 200 and 500. That's where I feel like the most that I've seen, or at least I can remember off the top of my head, that characters love to be when they kind of pull off this final comeback, which that's where we kind of get into the Luke Man's turn. As you kind of see him struggling after the attack, he goes for his turn. He actually uses Pot of Greed, so it's cool to see that card again. And he summons 3 monsters, get out his Dragears onto the field, and out of nowhere, he plays Fusion. Are we kidding right now? Luke, or Luke Man, whatever you want to call him, uses Fusion in this episode. Because I will tell you this, going into this episode, I thought Luke was going to lose because of the fusion. I thought maybe there was a chance he would use fusion, but I just didn't know how he would, like, if he would actually use it or not, but I guess I'm wrong, and he actually uses fusion in this episode, and this just shocks Yugioh in this episode as well, because obviously he believes that he's the only one that has fusion. He has the only copy, and funny enough, a line that he said earlier in the duel, and I forgot to mention this, and it was a great line, not only from Yugioh, but the Luke Man ends up playing a piggyback on it as well. You know, Yugioh says, "Let's have a fair match, dragon versus dragon," and then that's where he gets this Vertical Star monster onto the field. But Luke says in this episode, you know, you say you want to fight dragon versus dragon, well, how about I fight fusion versus fusion? And that's when he gets into his fusion summon, and actually summons another monster that I actually did cover on this channel, and it was his new big boss monster that we already knew of, and that was Dragius Star F. He ends up using that in this duel, and Yugioh thinks he's able to stop it. He activates a trap card, which can target, I think, one of his monsters in the graveyard that he used as a fusion material and destroy it, since he had Imaginary Actor in his graveyard, and I think it was like Serpenter, I can't remember what the name of it is. Since that was a dragon, he can go after Luke's dragon, but obviously this is where we learn of the other thing that kind of comes with Luke's new fusion monster, is another new type, which we already did know about this information. With that, we also know that there's a third one in the form of Magical Knight, which is going to be with Yuga's fusion, but we do learn that his monster is not going to be affected because it's not a dragon anymore. It is advanced from a dragon to a high dragon, so essentially all he ends up doing is switching his monster in defense position, and it seems like he'll be fine, because obviously when you battle a defense position monster, you're going to be completely fine. But obviously if you watch my video and just watch the episode in general, you know that's not the case, because he's able to activate Dragius Star's effect. Not only that he can attack twice, but he can also deal piercing damage for that turn, so he's able to use Dragius Star to destroy his Vertistar, and is able to go for a direct attack and defeats Yugioh. And this is where the whole controversy of this episode blossomed, because a lot of people, from what I saw, did not like this result at all from what I've seen, and I've thought about it for a while now, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm alright with the results for a couple of things that kind of had been going on with this episode. So I'll get into that in just a second, but obviously the Luke man wins this duel, which, by the way, before I do forget as well, and this is kind of a good thing as well, that I'm doing this a little bit later, which I've been doing these reviews a lot later than I would like to do, but we actually did get a little bit of bio on the Luke man, which we kind of already know that this was a character that he created in the comics that he made as a kid, but I'm going to read the YGO organization post that we got real quick, because there's something else to mention that we got from this post. So, Luke gives birth to the strongest hero, the Luke Man, a completely original manga hero drawn by Luke when he was younger. He fights the forces of evil that rule the universe, defending peace. Like Luke, his dueling prowess is incredibly high. Now, again, this is something we already knew, but let's real quickly look at the Luke Man's full design, because this isn't actually what the Luke Man is going to look like going forward, which it seems like this is going to be a constant thing going forward, or based off of this YGO organization post, because why would you be posting something like this if this is just going to be a one-time deal? That's why I feel like Gakuting is going to be appearing again at some point, if it wasn't for the fact that also he did appear in the opening. So let's look at the Luke Man real quick in his full design, which should be on screen right now. That way you guys can have a look at it if you haven't already seen it yet. And just by looking at this, you know what this looks like, or what I think this is? Do you guys remember during the opening when we saw that silhouette character? Not the one with the Goha siblings, you know, when they showed the shot of all the Goha siblings and then there's just like a purple character on top of all of the Goha siblings. Not that one, it's the one right after we see the shot of Swirly. We see like this, I always called it like an alligator looking monster. I think that monster looking character in the opening, I think that's the Luke Man. So I really do believe that that silhouetted character that we see, or one of the silhouette characters, because I gotta remember there's two silhouette characters, I believe one of them, and that one being the monster looking character, is the Luke Man. I really do believe that's what that character is, and that kind of proposes a question to me. And it's something I have been seeing going around the internet a little bit more recently. Does this kind of debunk the theory that Luke is going to be the sixth Goha president? Now, the reason why I mention this is because I think it would be really weird if both of the silhouette characters are Luke. I just really don't see that being the case. So if that's the case, and if I don't believe that they would have both of the characters be Luke, then that would debunk the Luke is the sixth Goha president, unless they just don't really care, which that's a very good possibility has happened as well. I don't think it's completely dead. I think we can still look at Luke as a possibility, but I think this other silhouette character, and that being the Luke Man, kind of, in my opinion, debunks. And now I know what people are going to say, but maybe it isn't Luke. Maybe it is still actually a monster, but it just looks way too similar, for, in my opinion, to just say that this is not, because then if it's not the Luke Man, what the heck is that silhouetted character? I mean, at this point, really, we're running out of time. Unless you're just going to throw something in there out of nowhere, who else can this character be, really? I know some people predicted at the beginning that this was going to be a monster, but we have still not seen a monster so far in the show that resembles something like that character from the opening. So I really do believe that that's the Luke Man. That's what I am going to stick to. And now the question just becomes, will both of the silhouette characters be Luke, or will it be someone different? And for anyone to ask if I don't think it's Luke, who would it be? Honestly, in my opinion, I think at this point it would probably just be a new character, because I just don't see Yuga anymore. I feel like they've definitely been going away from the whole Yuga being the sixth Goha president. I've just seen that whole theory just kind of disintegrate into nothing recently. So I feel like that whole theory It's still possible, but I just don't see it at this point. You know, they haven't really mentioned anything or led towards Yuga being the sixth Goha president other than like the beginning of the arc, but I feel like they were just joking around with that. So I don't know. It's really, really weird. I still don't know who it's going to be. I know some people do actually predict that Swirly might be one, even though I 100% disagree with that in all regards. I do not think it's Swirly at all, if I'm going to be completely honest. But I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see because I don't know, this is just something really interesting to kind of point out, and I think that's something that's very important to kind of look at when we're thinking about who is going to be this last Goha president, or one of the last one of the siblings. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and I'm kind of glad that I'm doing this review a little bit later, because if we didn't get any of this information, and I did my review a little bit earlier, then I probably would have gone on the bandwagon and said that, yeah, it's probably going to be Luke, because, you know, just the way they've been acting with Luke throughout the show, I just feel like that's a very strong possibility that that could be the case. But I don't know. I want to know your guys' thoughts on this down below, as well as the episode itself. So that's going to be a pretty interesting discussion going forward. But getting back into the actual topic of the episode, because it kind of went a little bit off the topic there. So Yugioh ends up losing a duel. He ends up going back into the airship, and we see Luke pass out, and in the background of the scene, we see a drone just fly by, and it immediately follows with Mimi saying a line, "Haven't I seen that mask before?" And I think this is indicating that this is the same mask that we saw in episode 53. Remember when Mimi got sent under the desk of, like, where the president's desk was at in President Drone, or Doll, whatever his name is, was showing a whole bunch of different masks because I think she wanted to change her style after what happened in the tournament. I think that's what she's hinting at. So maybe this dragon mask was like one of the alternate helmets that the President Drone could have. So with that in mind, does that mean that President Drone controlled Luke during this duel and made him essentially become the Luke man? That's what it seems to be, in my opinion, but I don't know, that's also something to kind of look at going forward as well. But we see Yugioh back in the Six Cross airship, and Euron ends up confronting Yugioh, and because Yugioh lost the duel, he ended up losing the badge that made him a president. However, although this happens, and Euron does tell him that because you're no longer the president, I'm the only one that's left, I am going to reinstate all of the former presidents. And all we just see after that is Yugioh start laughing maniacally, and this is where things get very interesting. And I think this is a reason why I feel like I'm fine with this result, other than the drone scenario. That was a big reason as to also why I think Rook needed to win this duel, because I know a lot of people would have been upset with this result when you would have thought from the prospect of, yeah, Luke's first loss was because he got possessed. Like, that would not have been a good look at all. So that's why I believe that it was, or one of the good reasons as to why Rook kind of needed to win this duel, even though I would honestly prefer Yugioh to win the duel and kind of continue his strength, because I think it would be even better when you think of it in hindsight that, oh shoot, Yugioh ended up beating the strongest member of the group. Now Yuga and the group have to try to figure out how in the world they're going to be able to beat Yugioh, and then that's how they would obtain fusion, and then they'll be able to beat Yugioh. But it seems like that will happen either way. It just, I don't know, I think it would be a little bit more impactful from a dueling perspective, but I still think it works with the way they did it. And we see Yugioh laughing, and he holds up the fourth badge that I mentioned earlier in this review. Now, what's very interesting about this is that Yugioh had the 4 badges like I mentioned earlier, but also he had another badge on his chest, the one he has been wearing since the beginning. So he had 5 badges with him, but when you think about it, only 4 presidents lost their spots. well, it was three at the time, and then there was the fourth one being Yugioh. But we know Yugioh was wearing his badge, and then he had three others on the table, which were from Yuka, Eugene, and Euro. But then there was another one, and this is where we get into the aspect of what also Yuka mentioned, not only in the last episode, but in this episode, that as long as Yugioh doesn't find that thing, he cannot become the president, the last remaining president. And it seems like Yugioh has found that thing, which is the sixth badge of the Goha siblings. And that's basically how he's able to still stay president even though he lost the duel. And what ends up happening after that is, because of treason reasons, Euron ends up losing his spot without even having to participate in the duel, since he basically broke their policy. And we even see him drop through the floor, and then you see Yugioh continue to laugh, and then he takes off this mask with the most sinister smile I think we have seen in Seven so far. And let me just say this, in my opinion, other than like the Dragon versus Dragon and the Fusion versus Fusion lines that Yugioh and Luke said in this episode, that smile right there, that creepy smile, was probably one of my favorite moments of this episode. It just shows how twisted of a character that Yugioh is, and I absolutely love it, and I want to see more of Yugioh going forward. And I really, and I mean this with full passion, I really hope that Yugioh does not get redeemed at the end of the arc. He's been such a good villain, and a villain that this show, if I'm going to be completely honest, kind of desperately needed, because they had no legitimate villain up to this point. So Yugioh is just continuing to be that villain that Sevens needed to be, and it just was shown with this episode, and I absolutely loved it. So with that in mind, and then you also see like the group watching over this, we also find out too that Luke doesn't remember anything about the duel or him obtaining fusion. So that's another thing to look at going forward, as well as how did he get the fusion card? Did he get it from President Drone? Did he get it from a meteor? Or what is it? What in the world happened to Rook, and where did he get this fusion card at? So there is a lot to think about going forward. But guys, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on episode 62 of Yugioh Sevens. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like the episode at all? Let me know your guys' thoughts on the Luke man. Did you like that whole concept or not? And your guys' thoughts on the information we got about it. And do you guys think that the Luke man is one of the silhouette characters in the opening, or do you think that's a completely different character? And do you think that hinders some of the thought that Luke will be the sixth Goha sibling, or do you still think it's very likely that Luke will still be the sixth Goha sibling? And also let me know your guys' thoughts on the result of this duel. Did you think the result was good, or do you think that Yugioh should have won this duel and not Luke? I would love to know all your guys' thoughts on this down below. But guys, that is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.